Where we are now, that also happened building up to COVID. That way you can learn these patterns and know how they operate and work. And so next time it's like you're already going to be flowing in the know. And so let's take a look back at 2018 at some of the plagues of Egypt that began manifesting on the scene, trying to get people's attention as we approach 2020 and as we approach the main event, which number 10 was COVID. And it's so interesting because a lot of the ones that I'm saying are not on our list yet for this year were actually the ones that had showed up last cycle before COVID. So we have water to blood and we have locusts. Okay, we're talking about locusts here, right? Back from the precursors before COVID or during COVID or leading up into it, right? So I believe this is from my old Twitter. I have some things blacked out just for personal privacy scenarios. Don't worry about that. Anyway, so let's look at this issue of locusts. As you can clearly see at the bottom, this was from a post from February 2020. So at this point, COVID was on the scene, but it was at the very beginning. And it wasn't like this global widespread thing. It was something that was just like in the chatter. People were talking about, it was very slowly counting. This is when the numbers were very, very small. So let's look over on the left side. When I saw this, apocalyptic locusts turned day into night in the country of Bahrain. So as you see from the picture at the bottom, it was so many locusts swarming the sky and the air that it was actually daytime, but it looked nighttime because that's how many locusts were all over the sky, turning everything dark. That's very weird and wild and crazy. Okay. So when I seen that, I was like, okay, that's some 10 plague stuff. And then I even put precursor warning to repent before the plague. So by then I knew what, the plague was, but I was telling people you need to repent because this is a precursor warning that the disease that's on the scene is going to get way worse. And I'm just saying, I know a lot of people probably wonder as a minister why I don't post a lot of prayers to stop the virus. And I'm telling them because already at the very beginning, God already showed me that it can't be stopped. And I'm here telling you now, the one that's coming soon to come in the future, it cannot be stopped. It's a done deal. You can only prepare yourself to be on the right side of the track as opposed to the wrong side of the track. That's all we got to work with. I'm sorry. Let's look over to the right and see if I was right about that being a sign. 48 hours later, after I said that, guess what happened? The number of COVID positive people jumped from 19 to 17. It almost doubled within 48 hours. Guess where? Bahrain. The same region and the same place where the locust showed up, 48 hours later, the infections doubled and increased. So exactly like I said, those locusts were a manifestation of a warning about the virus. And then once the locusts showed up, guess what happened? COVID started spreading and doubling amongst the population of where the locusts came to. I don't know how many of you guys remember this from back in 2020. Again, we're talking about those precursors that were trying to grab our attention both before COVID, escalating up to COVID, and during. Do you guys remember back in 2020 we had brood 9 of those cicadas? And remember, they were everywhere. They were covering the trees. They were all over our cars. Every day we went outside, they were chirping and squeaking and beeping. Do you guys remember that? Okay, cicadas are very similar to locusts. And then what makes things crazier, this was only brood 9 that came out in 2020 all along the East Coast. But then we turned right back around in following year, 2021, with another brood release. But this was a separate brood. That was brood 9 in 2020. And then turn around in 2021, brood 10 was actually a historic brood because that brood, it only emerges from underground every 17 years. So this was not something that just happens all the time. So we had back-to-back very massive broods, and one of those in 2021 being something that only comes around in a 17-year cycle. Just saying here, yes, the massive brood 10 cicada emergence occurred during the COVID-19 pandemic in spring of 2021. If you look below at the other article, cicada science heats up when brood 10 emerges. 2021 was no exception. In 2021, the second summer of a different pandemic, with many heartbreaking parallels, brood 10 cicadas again sent people. So even the person in the world who's writing this worldly article is correlating the emergence of the brood to COVID. They're even saying this is almost like a type of a pandemic, but it's like with insects. So even their subconscious is kind of making a tiny bit of a correlation. An example of what I mean by the 10 plagues being a precursor for the virus back then, during COVID and before COVID. And then the same thing is repeating now. That's how we know what we're approaching. Okay, let's talk about water the blood back in 2018. And these are just some events that were playing out and I was sharing back in 2017 and 2018. Okay, look at the bottom. This was from my old YouTube from 8 years ago, which would put this in 2018. So these were some stories. Now, this was just weirdness happening with the water that was just popping up all over the U.S. A military base accidentally leaks poison into the Colorado water supply without notifying the residents. Toxins in this material weaken the immune system as well as causes cancer. So I don't know if you guys remember that, and I don't know if you live in Colorado and remember that, but that was very weird and odd. And remember what I said about the water turning to blood doesn't mean it has to turn to blood. It means it's becoming unsafe or some sort of death is coming to the water supply. Another water story. This is also from 2018. At the same time, there was a Chinese space station full of toxic chemicals that was set to crash down to Earth within a few months. And those things scheduled to land in where? In the water supply. And they had clearly it had toxic chemicals coming from outer space. Okay. And again, these are just a handful of the examples and they were just popping up out of nowhere all at the same time. Boom, I turn around and this place in Kentucky, they were there without water for, I think it was a month or a little bit over a month without water. Like it was just everywhere. And I said, what is going on? This is all significant. And that's when I started sharing it. Okay, these were the plague precursors trying to get our attention before COVID. Remember, this is in 2018. Again, epidemic. I don't know if you guys know this, but there was an epidemic that occurred right a few years before COVID. Just like now how we're having the hantavirus and norovirus and Ebola disaster and cholera breaking out. Yeah, precursors. An epidemic is overflowing hospitals. This is in 2018 to overcapacities. There was so many people filling up the hospitals that they didn't even have room and they started having to build tents outside for the people. Okay, 2018. And what was that epidemic? It was, look at this article, what they called it, the flu from where? Hell. Now look at the title of the video. This is from 8 years ago and you can just read that. But this wasn't like your normal bad flu season. No, I don't know if you guys remember this, but this was in 2018. They call it the flu from hell for a reason because it was not your normal flu season. Look at this article. Deaths and climbing. Along with pneumonia, this year's epidemic may be killing 4,000 people per week. So there was a point where there were 4,000 people a week, every single week in the United States dying from this so-called flu. It was just very out there, okay? Very devastating. And it was spreading very, very fast. Look at the title of the video. Increases 40-fold. Not increases by 40 people. We're talking about 40 times. Because look at this first article. It started off with only 100 people a week dying in the hospitals in the US from this monster flu that happened in 2018. We went from 100 people a week dying all the way to 4,000 people a week dying from this thing. So it's a reason why they called it the flu from hell, because it was a monster. Like, this thing was very unusual and it was very deadly. And it spread very rapidly. It was extremely contagious, as you can see by the death multiplication. Happened very, very rapidly, okay? And the reason why I called it the days of Noah plague is because when I saw that number 40, I was like, oh, it rained for 40 days and 40 nights, I believe, right, on the ark. And that was the destruction. So again, all of this symbology and all of that was happening, these precursors, these plagues of Egypt that were leading up to COVID, was all meant to get our attention and get us in line and get us prepared for the main event that was coming, plague number 10. Okay. And unfortunately, and this was saying this is the same monster mega flu from hell from 2018. 1 in 10 American deaths and climbing. So a flu was causing, do you know how high 1 in 10 American deaths was because of this flu at that time? That is very wild. I don't know about you, but for me, it's wild. And unfortunately, when this happened in 2018, children were like very susceptible to it. Like, children, for some reason, were getting hit very, very, very hard. And even that was kind of anomaly. Flu epidemic leaves 53 children dead. Flu outbreak, same monster flu, has become gravely serious for children specifically. So it was something about children that it was really, really targeting. I don't think I had ever seen that many children deaths during flu season before. So guys, to wrap this up, I know I laid a lot of stuff on you. I know a lot of this is heavy, but like I said, as long as you're prepared spiritually, you're being obedient to the best of your ability, you have that relationship with the Lord, you're being obedient and following the instructions of his servants and messengers. And you also are being obedient you got to be prepared for this mentally and emotionally and physically, not just spiritually. Okay. So if you're trying to wonder, like, well, where do I start? Oh my God, what am I going to do? This platform, I don't just warn and say, oh, the sky is going to fall. I also, deliver instructions at some of the things that the Lord is looking for and some of the things that the Lord is saying we need to get in order. So this is a place of information and instructions, not just bad news. Well, okay, it's bad news coming. Well, what do we do? So this takes us full circle to the video I just released here. I want to say maybe a week ago. And here's the thumbnail for the video where I was first warning that another you know what is coming. Also Revelations 18, the seals are open and the 4 horsemen ride. I go and break that down for you so you can understand the secret, the temple being rebuilt, prophetic prophesied temple being rebuilt now secretly. I break it down in a way you can understand all that from a biblical perspective, to understand, okay, well, what is going on? What's happening? Where are we? What is going to happen? What are things that's going to come? What is this going to look like? What are some of the things we're going to experience? But I also, again, give instructions on how to prepare. So this is part 1. And then there's also a part 2. And this is the thumbnail. So if you want to begin to start praying, start repenting, start going before the Lord, how do I get ready and prepared? My videos, these are 2 good videos to start off with. And I also there's several other videos where it's not necessarily about spiritually, but it's like physical preparation and mental and emotional. I'll begin to make a playlist, all of these instructions inside of it. And unfortunately, guys, when I release this, another virus is coming. I released that on June 9th. And unfortunately, within a few short days, we already had an update and we already had a prophetic fulfillment and a sign that something manifested even in a few days. I'm up here saying another virus is coming. Well, guess what broke out in the news everywhere? what is that, 3 days later. Look at you can read, not gonna say it because this video got banned on TikTok. TikTok read through this video, and in less than 30 seconds it was yanked and banned off the air, because they don't want you guys to be prepared and know about what's actually happening and about to happen. But read the news article at the bottom. Yeah, that broke 3 days after I warned another virus is coming. Okay. Now, is that the full manifestation and fulfillment of it? No. But do you think that's an accident, that of all the time frames that could have been found out and discovered and released into the public with someone, by the way, who even cared to release it? Because a lot of these officials, they wouldn't even say it nothing. They would have turned the other way and pretend like they don't know nothing. Oh, well, no, we have somebody that actually cared, that said, this is not right. The public deserves, the citizens deserve to know about this. We got to look into this. This is dangerous. This is not right. Taxpayers should know about this stuff. So she's trying to fight to get them shut down and closed down. But guess what, guys? Unfortunately, it's too late. It's already been created. Okay. I'm going to just say that. But the reason why the Lord had her bring this out and had it released publicly is so you guys could pick up on the sign of the manifestation, that the fulfillment is on its way and approaching. And so you guys could know this is a sign confirming the prophetic word that I gave a few days earlier. Pretty much the Lord is like having my word be backed up. So guys, you want to check out all these videos. This is not about panic and fear, but it is about submitting to the Lord and being obedient. Just how you would tell your own children, you got to eat this, don't eat that, do this, you better not do that, because you're trying to protect them and save their life and do what's best for them. I can't stress this enough. It's going to be so important. Obedience, obedience, obedience. So if you are a person that, you above the law and you have not been obedient to the Lord and you just live life willy-nilly and you feel like you don't got to be obedient, you got free will. Okay, you can continue walking and you can continue living that way. But guess what? When this stuff hit, there's a lot of things from your parent and a lot of information and instructions and understanding that's going to be life-saving and very important for your survival that you're going to need to know. And guess what? You're not going to have it. Why? Because you have not been walking in obedience and you have not been living that life. So right now is the time he's given us. We are running out of a lot of time. We do not have a lot of time left before all this stuff starts ramping up and the main event gets here. But the reason that he has messengers is so we can utilize what little time we have left to get prepared and get in order and get in right alignment. Okay, so God bless everybody. I hope that this blessed you. Share, 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 share. People need to begin getting this understanding and sobering up and understand what's happening. And they need to begin to understand, well, what do we do and how do we prepare? So love you guys. I'll catch up with you next time.